Ranking Member Adam Kinzinger for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. Given the high level of interest in this hearing, the late start, and the many people that have questions, I'll be brief. Climate change is real, and the best way to combat it is by reducing not only our nation's carbon emission, but that of the rest of the world. The changes we are seeing in the climate pose both short and long-term challenges, and I believe they can be addressed in two major ways. First, we need diversity in our energy sources. Energy diversity is energy security. Similar to one's own personal investment strategies, this nation cannot afford to put all its eggs in one basket. If you're looking to invest, you don't put all your savings into one stock and let it ride. You diversify your investments in mutual funds, bonds, real estate, etc. Second, we need to support market-driven innovations to develop new clean energy technologies that will put the United States at the forefront of environmental technologies. Illinois' 16th Congressional District is a great example of what this market-driven strategy would look like. My district's home to 4 nuclear reactors, which serve as, actually it's 8 reactors, 4 plants, which serve as the most abundant, clean, and stable energy source on the planet, as well as hundreds of wind turbines, solar panels, and geothermal sources. These diverse sources not only provide year-round reliable clean energy, but also have produced high-paying jobs for my constituents. Around the world, many nations are implementing strategies to combat climate change, and nuclear must be part of that strategy. Unfortunately, some of our closest allies are taking their nuclear reactors offline at a time when we need low-carbon energy sources. Meanwhile, as the West looks at options to combat climate change, we all know that China's global emissions continue to rise. For every ton of carbon dioxide reduced by the United States, China adds nearly 4 times as much. Today, the Chinese account for 30% of global emissions. While some may say that the United States needs to be the leader of combating climate change, I would say that we already are. Since 2005, global emissions have increased by 20%, but the United States emissions have decreased by more than the next 12 emission-reducing countries combined. While reducing global emissions is vital, it's also important to note that there's over 1 billion people living without access to electricity. That's 1 billion people burning coal and wood for heat. 1 billion people living with increased risk for foodborne pathogens, 1 billion people living without access to basic sources of information like the radio. From a foreign policy standpoint, this should not be overlooked. The next global health crisis or conflict could easily come from these communities living in poverty. We must encourage other developed nations to reduce emissions while understanding that for economies just getting off the ground, it's not entirely possible, at least not without substantial help from the United States and our allies. It's going to take major innovation and breakthroughs to not only reduce our emissions here at home, but also provide clean, reliable power to those currently living without it. All Americans want to be good stewards of their environment. Tesla doesn't sell cars because of the sound system, and people don't put solar panels on their roof because they look good. Consumers, especially young people like we have today on our panel, want to know that policymakers share their values. I believe we do, and that we'll continue to see market-driven solutions that combat climate change and provide clean energy to the world. With that, I yield back the balance of my time.